out like it's
dripping
it all over the place.
Dripping it all over the place. Spitting it at the microphone.
No, blood.
Today has been difficult.
It has actually.
You see, I thought you were to play a song.
No. Apparently, though, old Ramsey's revealed that he's now talking to his estranged father-in-law. His estranged father-in-law, Chris Hutchinson, was jailed for 6 months in June for computer hacking, which was again part of a bitter feud with a celebrity chef. He's apologised to all of us, and I like to think there's drawn a line in the sand now. But a spokesman for Jamie Oliver declined to comment. So there we are. That's a poor little thing about Jamie Oliver.
Bit of a PR stunt, I would imagine, wouldn't you?
I think this got...
Do you think it's like the Gallagher brothers, where they just have this ongoing feud and they probably meet up for a pint and say, isn't it going well?
Sticking to all things that we do on a Saturday morning here, I don't know whether you knew about these Chennai 6.
The what?
The Chennai 6.
Chennai in India we're talking about?
Chennai 6, yeah? Apparently this is just come into being, but it's the worst case of injustice, which is dragged into the daylight by likes of Joanna Lumley and other high-profile campaigners. The Chennai 6 are half a dozen British ex-servicemen, either former members of the Distinguished Yorkshire Regiment or the Paras, who've been languishing in an Indian prison since 2014 on charges of entering Indian waters without permission, carrying guns. The 6 men, and it goes on to name them, were in fact on board a US-powered anti-piracy vessel protecting merchant seamen in some of the most dangerous waters in the world.
Bay of Bengal.
They were fully licensed and authorised, including paperwork which was issued by the British government, and that was to carry weapons and guard sea lanes, especially in the lawless waters of Somalia, where countless merchant crews had been seized and taken hostage. But low on fuel and storm battered, they strayed into Indian waters and were inexplicably arrested, tried for illegal entry and imprisoned. They won an appeal and temporary freedom, but lost a subsequent retrial. A petition to Downing Street next week will demand their immediate release. So, in fact, we would ask you here on CRMK to Google the Chennai 6 and sign up. Well, there you are.
How are you spelling Chennai?
Chenai.
Double N.
E-double-N-A-I.
This is where Richard lives.
Is it?
Yeah, Richard's probably listening.
Well, Richard, I hope you are. If you go, please go on to Google.
Go and let them out, Richard.
All right, and get on the Chennai 6 and sign up. And,
it used to be called Madras.
Let's. Madras, yes. This is still really rather ridiculous. So you're going to go there, right?
Well, Boris Johnson is vowed to help these people.
Oh God!
That's put the death nail in it for them, isn't it?
I would say no. Keep well away.
Yeah. I just think it's really inexplicable that these things have to happen, and it's totally lawful what they were doing, and yet they've been imprisoned, incarcerated, and there's just nothing we can do. Well, there's nothing we are doing about it. Why don't we start rattling sabres and declaring war?
Because we're British. Well, we don't do this sort of thing.
This is the trouble, isn't it? And it's a shame that they're ex-servicemen as well, and doing a grand job in protecting the merchant ships, and of course they're now in the khaki themselves.
So presumably then they've been charged with piracy, have they?
I don't know what they've been charged with. It's whatever it is. They're still inside, and they probably won't get out for quite a long time. And especially the way the Indian bureaucracy actually works itself. They're so slow. It's just
but do you know how you can speed it up? If we stop giving them lots of money.
Well, they don't want our money at any rate. They've said it.
Well, they take it.
They take it, but they
don't want it.
We said we don't want it.
Well, this is the dark thing about it, isn't it? Why do we continue? Yeah. Because some politicians say so. We get brownie points for giving money to countries that don't really want it. I'm sorry, but foreign aid gets my goat. I think.
But it's one of those.
It's ring fenced, isn't it? We give more than anybody else.
It is ring fenced, but Alan will appreciate and understand this as well. From a local government's view of aspects of finances, when money is given, for instance, by government to a local authority for roads or housing or schools or whatever the particular topic is, that money is ring-fenced, and that local authority can't then say, oh, we haven't spent all these millions.
But it would appear that there are people around the world that see it as a good excuse to go and buy the Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, of course it is. That's right.
And they use it for highly inappropriate.
But this happens again in local government as well, local authorities where they misuse the money, shall we say?
Well, the money that's ring-fenced for parking in Milton Keynes gets used for a lot of things other than parking.
Well, this is another talking point, isn't it? And we won't go down that road again.
Really?
We talk about the 6 in India, but there's another poor guy in Dubai. And apparently he put his hands on a man's hip, so not to. This bloke was walking back, and he just put it on there, just stop him spilling and bumping into people, And now this bloke has been arrested for public indecency after the incident at a bar popular with expats, and this happened in July as well.
Couples have been jailed for kissing on the beach, haven't they? Western couples and all this sort of stuff.
I don't know why people go to these third world countries.
Exactly right. I was just going to say that.
Why on earth does anybody in their right mind go to an Arab country where they know they're going to be subjected to this sort of ridiculous
harassment? Yeah, I've only been. Well, I've been to Abu Dhabi and I've been to Dubai. I haven't been there. I've been in the airport lounge when I've changed aircraft and things. Transit. But even then, you're very wary because you can't even carry things like aspirin in your bag. If you got searched and they found aspirin, you're in jail. No trial. You're in jail.
No, that's right.
That's a drug, an asprin.
But I mean, as you say, all right. Well, why did people go there in the first place? But it is a holiday resort and becoming quite a popular holiday resort as well.
Well, woe betide anybody that goes there. It's not exactly a major secret that you're very likely to find yourself the wrong side of their judicial system, which is barbaric.
Well, look at Qatar. Qatar are sponsoring like the news on Sky and things like that. But their regime is dreadful. It's absolutely dreadful. They've got these migrant workers going there from, particularly Tamils from Sri Lanka and Indian workers, and they're treating them like absolute dirt, and they're not getting paid. There's thousands upon thousands are dying on these building sites where they're building the complex for the World Cup.
No health and safety at all.
No, it's absolutely criminal. But Qatar, because they've got money and they can influence people, particularly previously Blatter and people like that, then they got the World Cup, didn't they? And it should never be there.
This was a subject of conversation last night, actually.
Was it?
Over a few beers, yeah. Just talking about, a helicopter view of the planet. What we're doing, it started off with electric cars. We were talking about electric cars. And we are the Western Hemisphere is basically reducing our dependency on Arab oil. The problem is we've been totally dependent on Arab oil since the Second World War, really.
Forever, that's right. Yeah.
And that dependency has resulted in what third world countries, winning the jackpot. They've had huge amounts of revenue, and I don't know whether they spent it wisely or not, building the infrastructure for their country, but it would appear that they've overspent in some cases.
Well, Dubai apparently, I've seen film of this, is they've got no main sewage service. In where all the hotels are, they have a fleet of sewage trucks miles long that queue up to take it out of the city.
Yeah, honey wagons.
Yeah, honey wagons. Or the poo truck, as they call it. One goes around here, and they have to take it out of town somewhere to where it's disposed of. And there's mile after mile of these trucks. I've seen film of it on TV. And maybe the front of the place, Dubai, looks very prosperous and everything else, but behind the scenes lurks another story.
But by 2040 and maybe 2025, the actual amount of oil that we need is dropping through the floor. The proliferation of electric cars is going to really change the balance of power on a global level, and those countries that were oil rich are going to have a real comeuppance because they won't have the revenue anymore.
Well, this is what happens, and things do go around in circles, don't they?
Well, that's again a long debate there looming up, I can see, because at the end of the day, there are still going, you're not going to have electric cars in a lot of the subcontinents.
People trip over the wires, won't they?
Well, yeah, that's right, where people are still driving around in beating up old petrol and diesel cars and trucks and tractors.
The thing is, though, that as the mass production of battery-powered vehicles increases and the cost of batteries come down, it becomes economically viable to use them. We will also have in the Western world there'll be tax advantages to using them.
Yeah, but we're talking about cars, aren't we? And it seems only to be cars. I mean, what about trucks and diesel
buses.
trains and buses?
There's buses.
There are. London have got hybrids, haven't they?
Oh, Milton Keynes have got a number of electric buses.
Yeah, but trucks, no. Is it because of the weight they carry?
I think it's the power to weight ratio of the vehicles. It makes it very difficult. But I think that what will probably happen is trucks will develop diesel-electric technology in much the same way that some of the more advanced cars have basically got a battery pack with a generator on board. And so they can use stored electricity that they can get from off-peak sources, and they can also generate as required, so that there is no problem with longer distances. But I think big, heavy-duty, long-distance lorries, really, we don't have the technology for that yet.
But you see, we should have been doing all this, sorting out the problems of our transport systems in this country 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, we've always
but the oil companies really haven't been that enthusiastic about the electric car.
Wonder why.
Oh, indeed.
But what makes me amused, and I hope I'm alive to see it, is that possibly sometime in our foreseeable future, say maybe 10, 15 years time, somebody's going to come up with something like, well, they are talking about hydrogen cars at the moment, and if they develop that and develop a network of being
that's
able
not going to happen.
Well, you say it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Did you see that list of things that weren't going to happen? I sent you.
Hydrogen cars, yes, in theory they could work. You're much more likely to see a hydrogen lorry. Actually, that might be a potential
hydrogen bomb.
But they're too complex, really, for a car. When there's a much easier solution, which is a battery.
Yes, but we're all running down the road and relying on electric cars.
Rapeseed oil, that you can run on rapeseed oil.
I think that I'd love to be able to sit here in 20 years' time at the Grumpy Old Men and say, I didn't realise, that this is going to happen, because we can't foresee, we can't picture.
Okay.
I
can see the future. I've got my crystal ball.
He has a crystal ball.
Could you see?
What I've got is I've now got two mates. I mean, 3 years ago I didn't know anybody with an electric car. I've now got two close friends that have got electric cars. And they're very good. They've got a range of about 100 miles.
Yes, that's right.
100 miles. It's great when you're going on holiday, isn't it?
All right, but just wind the clock back 100 years, all right? And people talked about, we'll have television sets, in 100 years' time. People say, what's a television set? That's a thing where you can watch in colour, bits and pieces around. You'd be taken out and burnt as a witch. People just they don't understand it. When man started first flying, the Wright brothers and all this sort of thing, and somebody turned around and said, it won't be long before you'll get these planes that can carry 600-800 people, and they'll get to Australia in 10 minutes and all this sort of thing.
Technology's coming, but it's taking too long and it's too expensive.
Yeah, but we don't understand what this technology is going to be. It's a little bit like the medical sciences and that. How many years ago, when was it, Christian Barnard did the first heart transplant? It was 68,
40 years ago, 50 years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. And now, it's just people are living much later. I don't know. It's just I would love somebody.
We've got the problem that that heart surgery and lots of surgical procedures have dramatically changed the way in which we live, and caesarean births have transformed life expectancy for babies and the like.
You guys laugh
but we're facing the big danger of not being able to do that in the future. I mean, I'm listening to sort of professions of surgery that have been broadcasting lately just warning us that we're running out of antibiotics.
Well, that's true.
And what we regarded as relatively straightforward procedures will no longer be part of the equation, and that would include caesarean births.
Do you know, you guys laugh about me sitting here in my tutu, but I would love to see somebody with glass balls, that can read the future. I really would. This is CRMK on a Saturday morning with me, Mike Barry.
And with me, Bob Luffield.
And me, Alan Mallingham.
And together, of course, we are...